Have you ever wondered if ancient stories hold secrets that could reshape how we see the world today? Get ready for a journey into one such tale where history and mystery collide. The story of Sodom and Gomorrah may have more to reveal than you ever imagined, challenging your beliefs and offering insights that go far beyond the past. Join us as we dive deep into this fascinating narrative, where moral dilemmas, divine justice, and human choices intertwine. Prepare to question what you think you know and uncover truths that may just change your perspective on life itself. Let's embark on this adventure together. Keep an open mind, and you might be surprised by what you discover. Under the scorching midday sun, Abraham sat at the entrance of his tent, gazing into the distance when suddenly 3 figures appeared. Without hesitation, he rose, rushing toward them with an energy that defied his age. Bowing deeply in respect, he spoke with sincerity. "My lords, if I have found favor in your eyes, do not pass by without stopping. Allow me to offer you water to wash your feet and some food to refresh your strength before you continue on your way." The visitors accepted, and Abraham immediately set about ensuring the finest hospitality. He hurried to his wife Sarah, instructing her to bake fresh bread from the best flour, and ran to select a tender calf for his servants to prepare. With milk, curds, and meat, Abraham served them under the shade of the great trees, standing by attentively as they ate. As the meal drew to an end, one of the visitors, who had remained mostly silent, turned to Abraham with a statement that would forever change their lives. "I will return to you about this time next year, and your wife Sarah will have a son." Sarah, listening from the tent, could not contain her disbelief. She laughed quietly to herself. After all, she and Abraham were well beyond the years of childbearing. "Could I really have a child, now that I am old?" she thought. But the visitor, sensing her doubt, asked, "Why did Sarah laugh? Is anything too hard for the Lord?" This moment not only shocked Abraham and Sarah, but also foreshadowed the greater revelations and judgments yet to come. As Abraham led the visitors toward Sodom, a sense of foreboding lingered in the air. As the visitors prepared to leave, Abraham's heart grew heavy. He knew of the impending doom that awaited Sodom, a city so plagued by wickedness that its cries had reached the heavens. But amidst this knowledge, Abraham's compassion for even the people of Sodom took over. Standing before the Lord, he dared to speak, knowing the weight of his words. "Will you sweep away the righteous with the wicked?" Abraham asked, his voice steady but filled with humility. "What if there are 50 righteous people in the city? Will you really destroy it and not spare the place for their sake? Far be it from you to kill the righteous with the wicked. Should not the judge of all the earth do what is right?" The Lord listened, and in his infinite mercy replied, "If I find 50 righteous people in Sodom, I will spare the whole city for their sake." But Abraham, sensing the city's depravity, pressed further. "What if there are 5 less than 50? Will you destroy the whole city for the lack of 5? The Lord, ever patient, answered, "If I find 45 there, I will not destroy it." Still, Abraham did not stop. Emboldened by the Lord's mercy, he continued his plea. "What if only 40 are found there?" The Lord answered, "For the sake of 40, I will not destroy it." Again Abraham spoke, his voice growing more urgent. "Please do not be angry, my Lord, but let me speak. What if only 30 are found?" And once more the Lord's response echoed mercy. "I will not destroy it if I find 30 there." Abraham, knowing the gravity of the situation, did not cease. "What if only 20 can be found?" The Lord replied, "For the sake of 20, I will not destroy it." Finally, with all humility, Abraham made his final request. "What if only 10 righteous people are found there?" And the Lord, full of compassion, said, "For the sake of 10, I will not destroy the city." In this tense exchange, Abraham's deep sense of justice and mercy was revealed. He pleaded not just for the righteous, but for the lives of the wicked, hoping they might be spared through the presence of the few just. The Lord, though poised to judge, showed incredible restraint and mercy, willing to spare an entire city for the sake of a mere handful of good souls. This divine balance between justice and mercy would soon be tested, as Sodom's fate hung on the righteousness of its people. The moral decay of Sodom ran far deeper than the sins commonly spoken of. It wasn't just a city of rampant immorality and violence. Its heart had grown cold, marked by selfishness, cruelty, and a complete disregard for those in need. The people of Sodom had become so corrupt that basic hospitality, a core value in the ancient world, was entirely lost. Strangers were not only unwelcome but often met with hostility, a reflection of a society consumed by greed and pride. In stark contrast, Lot, Abraham's nephew, still clung to the values he had learned from his righteous uncle. As two angels entered the gates of Sodom at dusk, Lot immediately rose to meet them, bowing low in respect. "My lords," he urged them, "please, come to your servant's house. You can wash your feet and spend the night, then go on your way early in the morning." Though the angels initially refused, preferring to stay in the square, Lot persisted with an almost desperate urgency, knowing the fate that awaited them if they remained exposed to the wickedness of the city. Lot's hospitality stood in sharp contrast to the vile nature of Sodom's citizens. Not long after the angels entered Lot's home, the men of the city, young and old alike, surrounded his house. Their demand was horrifying: "Bring them out to us so that we can have our way with them." In this moment, the true depth of Sodom's depravity was revealed. Not only did they reject the sacred duty of welcoming strangers, but they sought to exploit and abuse them. Their actions were rooted in selfishness, a lust for power, and a complete lack of compassion for others. Lot, torn between the values of righteousness and the pressure of living in such a corrupt society, made a tragic offer. Desperate to protect his guests, he shockingly suggested, "I have 2 daughters who have never slept with a man. Let me bring them out to you, and you can do what you like with them. But don't do anything to these men, for they have come under the protection of my roof." This shocking proposal reflected Lot's internal struggle. He understood the importance of hospitality, but living in Sodom had warped his sense of justice and morality. In Sodom, the sin of selfishness and neglect of the vulnerable went hand in hand with the city's more infamous transgressions. The town's refusal to care for the poor, protect the weak, or show kindness to strangers revealed a society that had utterly abandoned its humanity. Lot's struggle was real and painful, as he tried to maintain his integrity while living in a place so utterly corrupted by greed, pride, and cruelty. As the first light of dawn crept over the horizon, the urgency in the angels' voices grew. "Hurry," they urged Lot. "Take your wife and your daughters who are here, or you will be swept away when the city is punished." But Lot hesitated. His heart wavered, torn between the comforts of the life he had built in Sodom and the pressing need to escape the impending disaster. It was only the mercy of the Lord that saved him, as the angels grasped his hand, along with his wife and daughters, and led them out of the doomed city. "Flee for your lives," the angels commanded. "Do not look back, and do not stop anywhere in the valley. Flee to the mountains, or you will be swept away." As Lot and his family stumbled away, the sky behind them began to darken, a foreboding silence filling the air before the heavens unleashed their fury. Then, with a deafening roar, fire and burning sulfur rained down from the sky. The very earth trembled as the flames engulfed Sodom and Gomorrah, turning them into a hellish inferno. Smoke billowed into the sky like the smoke of a great furnace, blotting out the sun, as the once proud cities were reduced to ashes in an instant. The stench of sulfur and destruction clung to the air, but Lot kept his eyes forward, running for his life. His heart was pounding, his mind consumed with fear, but also a sliver of hope. Yet behind him, his wife could not resist. Perhaps it was the life she had known, the possessions she had left behind, or the memories of the city. Her attachment to Sodom was too great to abandon. Against the clear command of the angels, she turned and looked back. In that moment, her fate was sealed. Instantly, her body stiffened, frozen in place as if the very air around her turned to stone. Lot's wife, consumed by her longing for the past, became a pillar of salt, a tragic monument to the peril of looking back at a sinful life when salvation is at hand. Her disobedience, rooted in her unwillingness to let go, was met with swift and final judgment. Lot and his daughters fled further into the mountains as the judgment of God roared behind them. The fires consumed everything in their path, the homes, the people, the city itself, all vanishing under the weight of divine wrath. What had once been a thriving, albeit wicked city was now nothing more than smoke and ruin. God's judgment was absolute, a powerful reminder of the consequences of sin and the peril of clinging to the corrupt and worldly. As Lot reached safety, he looked out over the valley where Sodom and Gomorrah had stood. The destruction was complete. Nothing remained of the cities that had once seemed so invincible. It was as if they had never existed, erased from the earth by the hand of God. And in that moment, the weight of the divine judgment settled heavily on his soul. A grim reminder of the peril of turning back when grace offers a way forward. The destruction of Sodom and Gomorrah left a permanent scar on Lot's life, not just in the loss of his home, but in the moral decay that lingered within his own family. Though Lot had physically escaped the burning cities, the corrupting influence of Sodom was far from behind him. The very values that plagued the city, selfishness, moral compromise, and distorted views of righteousness, had seeped into the hearts of his daughters, manifesting in one of the most disturbing episodes recorded in the Bible. After fleeing to the mountains, Lot and his daughters found themselves isolated in a cave, cut off from society and overwhelmed with fear and uncertainty. Believing that no men were left on earth to carry on their family line, Lot's daughters devised a plan that reflected the twisted morality of the city they had left behind. "Let's get our father to drink wine and then sleep with him to preserve our family line through him," the eldest suggested. What followed was a shocking act of incest. On 2 consecutive nights, they made Lot drunk, and each daughter took turns lying with him. The fact that they saw this as an acceptable solution speaks volumes about the long-term impact of living in such a corrupt society. Even though they had escaped Sodom physically, its depravity continued to shape their worldview, showing how deeply the city's influence had rooted itself within them. This tragic episode revealed that the values of Sodom had not only corrupted the city itself, but had deeply infiltrated Lot's family. His daughter's actions were a stark contrast to the righteousness that Lot had once tried to uphold. The moral compass of his family had been compromised, warped by the culture they had lived in for so long. The decision to seduce their own father highlighted how far they had fallen from the principles of purity and righteousness that should have guided them. Lot, though described as a righteous man in earlier scriptures, had allowed himself to become entangled in the web of Sodom's temptations. His choice to live in such a corrupt environment, attracted by its material comforts, ultimately cost him dearly. Though he had survived the fire and brimstone, his family did not emerge unscathed. The consequences of living in a place like Sodom lingered long after the city's ashes had cooled. The story of Lot's daughters serves as a sobering reminder that even the righteous can be affected by the world around them if they are not vigilant. It is a testament to the insidious nature of corruption that it does not merely vanish with physical escape, but can cling to the soul, reshaping values and distorting what is right and wrong. Lot's life after Sodom is a cautionary tale about the long-lasting effects of living in a morally compromised society and how, if we are not careful, the world's influence can follow us even when we think we've left it behind. The story of Sodom and Gomorrah serves as a timeless warning for all of us, echoing through the centuries with its message about the dangers of moral decay, selfishness, and unchecked worldly desires. It is easy to see Sodom's destruction as a distant tale of ancient cities, but the real power of this story lies in its relevance to our modern lives. Like Lot, we live in a world that is filled with temptations and distractions, where material comforts and societal pressures often lead us to compromise our values, sometimes without even realizing it. The people of Sodom were not only guilty of visible sins, but of deeper, more insidious faults: neglect of the poor, arrogance, and a selfish refusal to care for those in need. Their attachment to wealth, power, and indulgence blinded them to the path of righteousness, and in the end, their destruction came swiftly and without warning. Lot's own story shows us that even the righteous can be led astray if they allow themselves to be seduced by the comforts of a corrupt society. In our modern world, the dangers of materialism and moral decay are ever present. We are constantly encouraged to pursue success, wealth, and pleasure at all costs, sometimes at the expense of our integrity and compassion for others. The story of Sodom reminds us that such pursuits are fleeting, and that true fulfillment comes from living a life aligned with moral principles. It challenges us to examine our own lives, asking whether we have allowed the world's values to overshadow what is truly important. Lot's hesitation, his wife's fatal glance back, and the disturbing choices of his daughters all serve as warnings of what happens when we become too attached to the world around us. We must guard our hearts and minds, maintaining our moral integrity even when surrounded by temptation. The message is clear. The things of this world, its wealth, its pleasures, are temporary, but the consequences of our choices are lasting. As you reflect on this story, consider where your values lie. Are you striving to live with compassion, integrity, and righteousness, or have you been swayed by the comforts and distractions of the modern world? The lessons of Sodom and Gomorrah remind us that the pursuit of worldly desires can lead to destruction. But a life rooted in moral principles will stand strong, even when the world around us crumbles. Thank you for joining us on this journey through the ancient story of Sodom and Gomorrah and the powerful lessons it holds for our modern lives. As we've seen, the challenges of maintaining moral integrity in a corrupt world are as relevant today as they were then. Let this story serve as a reminder to stay grounded in compassion, righteousness, and humility, no matter the temptations around us. We hope this reflection inspires you to look inward and evaluate the values guiding your own life. If you found this discussion insightful, be sure to like, share, and subscribe for more thought-provoking content. And as always, we look forward to having you with us on our next journey of discovery.